Thank you for joining my new podcast, Change Your Number. Change Your Number is a podcast that's inspired by a book that I recently published, Change Your Number, Change Your Life. The concept of the podcast is to encourage people to make positive decisions that add value to their lives versus making negative decisions that actually subtract value. So today we're going to talk about the concept of voting. That's a concept that we want to educate people about the importance of voting and also discuss a few of the reasons that people actually don't vote. And we would like to start by introducing our guest today. Again, I'm George Dean, and I have my co-host, Donica Davis.
Hello.
And also our guest commentator, Don Crawley.
Good evening, everyone.
So Donica, we'll start with you. Do you want to briefly tell us a little bit about, about yourself and what you know about voting, about the topic?
Okay, well, hello everyone. As George introduced me earlier, I am Donica Davis. I am a great millennial. I'm 26 years old. I reside in Atlanta, Georgia. I do PR coordination work, and I just think that voting is a very, very significant topic that everyone needs to be informed on, because as everyone should know by now, voting is very critical in this state of age. And this podcast I was asked to hop on board with it. I was honored because information about things that are being hindered to our community, I think is a very, very great way to get the word out from people that they can relate to. So I hope that you guys enjoy watching us tonight and that you also gain a lot of insight and information from it. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Donica. So Don, you're up next. Let's see if I could put you in the spotlight view. Put the spotlight on you, Don. Here you go.
That is definitely a spotlight.
And you all look fantastic. That's the more important thing.
Excellent.
So just tell us a little bit about yourself, about your background, and why voting is important to you.
So a little bit about myself. So I am currently a sales professional, advertising, marketing, and PR. My background is in reporting, journalism. I worked in that field for about 10 years, had some interesting interviews, saw a lot of the country, and had a great time. Voting has always been, a priority of mine because the decisions that these leaders are making affect our lives in, very concrete type ways that, can affect everything, your finances, your day-to-day dollars, your children, things that we care about quite a bit. So, as Donica mentioned, these are things that are affecting our communities every day, and you want to make sure that your voice is heard as far as it goes.
I don't care about politics. I don't care about Pokemon, but that doesn't mean it won't keep on coming back. That's actually what people in power are betting on, that you'll check out, that you won't vote. And when you opt out, that allows other people to essentially fill that void. You remember those hearings where members of Congress were asking Mark Zuckerberg questions like they've never used the internet before? That's because they haven't. Here's your chance to vote for people who actually know what the internet is. My vote doesn't matter. Now, the last presidential election turned on fewer than 100,000 votes in 3 states. More people go to Coachella. Look, when it comes to something like Dancing with the Stars, people actually think their vote matters. But a vote in this November's election actually does matter. It could elect people who make our criminal justice system fair and your student loans easier to afford. And by the way, you wouldn't let your grandparents pick your playlist. Why would you let them pick your representative who's going to determine your future? Elections, by the way, aren't boring. You know what's boring? Scrolling through endless photos of your dinner on Instagram. Also, This thing has something called Google. You can't use Google to figure out which candidates on your local ballot think that the earth is flat and climate change is a hoax. Google is super easy to read. Where I'm supposed to vote. This one's easy. Do you know your address? If you do, just go to vote.org. Next. I don't have time to vote. I understand that it's not always easy to find time to vote on a Tuesday. That's why in every state you can get an absentee ballot, which you can mail in or drop off ahead of Election Day. And in 37 states, you can actually vote early, which is like going to a private Jay-Z Beyonce concert, just without Jay-Z and Beyonce. But take some friends anyway, beat the lines, because like most things, voting's more fun when you do it together.
So there we go. There we go. So former President Obama, he shared with us 7 excuses why people that people give on why they don't vote, and I thought it was pretty interesting. And I do want to say as well, have a quick disclaimer before we get started. We are going to discuss a lot of these issues as well. Let me mute this, so give me a moment. All right, so we're back. So the disclaimer is that this podcast is not intended to give any type of professional advice. No medical advice, no legal advice, no financial advice. It's just sharing of ideas. And also, although we just saw former President Barack Obama's video, this podcast is not intended in any way, or should it be construed, to actually endorse any particular candidates or any particular party. So as long as we're good on that quick disclaimer, we're going to continue this podcast. And so again, we're going to just jump right into some of the issues. I mean, we have a great panelist here and co-host Donica and Don as well. So let's go ahead and start with the first, I guess, reason that Americans give for the reasons they don't vote. And so one of the reasons that they give is that they don't care about voting. So just want to see if you all have any thoughts on that. Don, do you have any thoughts? People saying they just don't even care about voting.
I do have a few thoughts on that. The first of which being, and I guess this is just me personally being an African-American female, I know that there are people who have worked very, very hard to make sure that I have the right to vote, both African-American and both female, to, the point, as history has shown us, that some people have lost their lives in pursuit of that. So to me, saying I don't care about that, I think would, cause some of our ancestors to just roll over in their graves because of all the work that they have done, to make sure that, we can go to the polls and participate in a free and fair election.
Sure, Don, and that makes a lot of sense. Appreciate you sharing that. Let me see if I can switch this view back over. Yeah, we should be back now. So I think the next reason that's given is that people are too busy to vote. And I would like to jump in and comment on this one. And my comment is that people will make time to do what they want to do. I mean, that's the bottom line. Whatever's important to you, that's what you're going to make time to do. So to say that they're too busy, again, of course, we know that's an excuse. And so what a lot of states have done is given opportunities to say, okay, if you're too busy, let's offer early voting. You can even vote in some states on Saturdays and Sundays. So the too busy excuse is clearly a reason why people just want to give for why it's unimportant. And it goes back to what Don said in the first one, people just not caring. And so, again, things that people don't care about, they'll find an excuse for. But we just want to try to encourage, people who are eligible and registered to vote to actually just get out and vote. So anything that we can do to motivate people to do that, that's what our goal is. So I guess that leads us to the next one. Did anybody else want to comment about being too busy? if you had any.
Yes, I wanted to comment on that. I think that is one of the most craziest reasons for people who work, if their hours aren't, aligned with 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. for early voting or the weekend. If you are working, that's your right. Your job will let you get off to go to vote. There's absolutely no excuse why, I know for college students, majority of the time they are voting polls set up on college campus. So you can go when you're switching classes to go and cast a vote. I don't, the too busy excuse is just a layman term for I don't want to vote. It does that's a sugar coated way about it, and because it's too many options that are given to you, so you'll be able to vote. I mean, it's a very convenient thing. Voting is very convenient, and so I think that that's just a excuse for not wanting to vote. That's how I feel about the too busy comment.
Great. And thanks, Donica. So hopefully towards the end, we can actually, of the end of this podcast, we can just motivate people on, the reason. I have a challenge, actually. At the end of this podcast, I have an Ad in Life challenge. So I will share that with everybody once we, get ready to conclude the podcast. So I do want to go to the next reason. The third reason that we have is that people don't feel like there's anyone to vote for. So, want to see if you all have any thoughts on that. Don, do you have any thoughts on that?
A lot of times we are placed in situations where we don't necessarily like either candidate. This is something that I've heard from people, specifically with this last presidential election. Well, I don't like Trump and I don't like Hillary, so I'm just going to stay home. Well, whether you like either one of them or not, one of them is going to be president of the United States. It's not, I don't like Trump, I don't like Hillary, and, there's another option. One of these people is going to be making decisions that affect your life on a daily basis. And, you have to decide. I don't want to use the analogy, the lesser of two evils, to describe this.
But you are.
But you have to make a choice because these are the two options that have been presented. And hey, listen, if you want there to be other options, get involved in your local community. Find out who's running on a local level, state level. Get involved with the people that are shaping our world. And perhaps we can see some candidates that better reflect our values. And I'm a millennial, and that better reflect the world that we see today.
Sure. Well, Don, I just can't let you get away with this one about the lesser of two evils. Like I can't let that one slide. So you really have to probably explain that one a little bit more.
So a lot of people would run down the things that they didn't necessarily like about Trump, and then run down the things that they didn't like about Hillary Clinton. They didn't like the rhetoric that, Trump had. They brought up the things that he said about women being disparaging. And with Hillary, she's an establishment politician. She's been up there too long. She's probably corrupt. So, I think that pretty much people had a laundry list of things that they did not like about both candidates and used that as a reason to stay home. But that's not a reason to stay home. As some people have, said to me when I've mentioned, hey, I don't like this about this particular politician. I don't agree with their particular position on education, school funding, what have you. They've said, listen, you have to take a list of the things that are going to be affected by your vote and decide which candidate that you agree with most, and then cast your vote based on that. Because at the end of the day, again, one of these people is going to be representing you. And
Right.
why would you not be a part of that process?
That's a good point. That's a good point. So Donica, move on to the next reason people don't vote. They don't believe that their vote counts.
Yes, because I did a survey myself
Sure.
with age groups between 18 and 29. 74% of 18 to 29 age groups do not vote. 30 to 39 is 51%, 40 to 49 is 37%, 50 to 69 is 24%, and 70 plus is 16%. Referring back to the Barack Obama video that we just watched, Barack, he said that you have these old people that are voting for you. They don't know, like, you want them to represent you. And the thing about the highest percentage of 74%, it falls back on the 18 to 29 age group. And the reason why is because they say that the popular vote does not matter. It's based off of the electoral vote, based off of what state is bigger. And it's not a fair judgment because they think that the popular vote should be bring the candidate in, but it's not. It's an electoral vote, and that disguises a lot of people away from voting, and that's why they feel like their vote does not count. The voting ratio is very, very low for 18 to 29. The percentage that do vote frequently is only 5%. 30 to 39 is 15%, and your 40 to 49 is 10%, and your 70 plus is 41%. So at this point right here, votes are based off of old people, and we have a
hold on, wait a minute, Don. Older people, let's say older people. Yeah, older. The older you get, the older you get, the more likely you are to vote. Is that fair to say?
That's what it is. And that's why I think we have to be informed a little bit more on it. But that was the main reason why a lot of people say they do not vote, because their vote don't matter. They say that the popular vote should be the overruler, but it's not. It's about electoral vote.
Right. Okay. Well, I want to add another one. People say that they believe the system is corrupt, and we are getting short on time, so we're going to try to keep our comments pretty quick. So any particular thoughts? I think you started to bring it up as well, Donica, about the way that the Electoral College works, but also people just feel that, no matter who they vote for, people are going to get in and they're going to do the same thing. Whichever candidate, they're really just going to do the same thing because they're all corrupt.
Mm-hmm. And there has to be a reason why people feel like the candidates are corrupt. When you have a number of people feel the same way, there has to be a reason why they feel that way. Do you feel like that, George? Do you think that could be the problem? It's because it's been such a reoccurring situation that people just have been I won't say brainwashed, but they've been trained to think that it's corrupt. Like, why do you think people think that voting is corrupted?
Well, I just think that it's a lot of the things that you see in the media, and all of this stuff in the media isn't like fantasy. Some of it is reality, and I just feel, there are things that we see on things that a lot of politicians get away with, and things that, the investigations, the scandals, and that just leads people to really, not trust government. And I just feel that, like Don said earlier, if you have concerns about that, you have to probably put your hat in the race, get involved, even besides outside of volunteering, and actually start running for office. And so my encouragement, which tie into my Adding Life challenge, it just would be, if you have concerns about this, they are legitimate concerns. Most of them, except for being too busy. A lot of them are somewhat legitimate. So if you have these concerns, you just have to do something, figure out what can you do to change the system. I actually spoke with somebody recently, and I asked him, well, do you vote? And he was like, well, no, I don't vote. So I said to him, I said, well, if you don't vote, what is it that you do to have a voice? His answer was, I pray. And I said, okay, that's a great answer. That's a great answer. And so I asked him, well, in addition to praying, is there anything else that you do to actually exercise your voice? And there was no response to that. So I had to leave him with thinking about what other ways can he actually have a voice besides, praying, in addition to prayer. Because prayer, if that's, an important way that somebody wants to actually tackle some of these issues, that works. But in addition to that, what else can we do? We don't want to just do one thing. That's the point. So my encouragement would be, put your hat in, start running for office. If there's several things that's what we're talking about on this podcast. What can you do? And so I do want to go ahead and talk about my Adding Life challenge. So again, adding is making decisions that add value on the number line versus subtracting. So right here, I have a vote sign. And on the other side, you have the number line. This is what a number line. So if anybody doesn't know what this is the number line. Okay. So here we have the negative when you're going to the left, but when you're going to the right direction, you have the positive. And this is the number line. So adding in life is making decisions that fall on the right side of life. And so my Adding Life challenge for everybody is to select at least 5 people that you know and encourage them to get out to the polls. Only 5 people who are registered and eligible to vote, and just text them, call them, and just keep encouraging them to vote. Some people say, well, I don't know who to vote for. Well, you can get out and actually look at your ballot, look at a sample ballot. And remember, there's more on a ballot besides just candidates. You have issues on the ballot, whether you'll have a new sales tax or not. So select 5 people and encourage them to get out to vote. And if they could vote early, they need to do that. And I think we're coming close to the time up. So I just want to tell everybody, thank you for joining. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me at on Instagram or on Facebook. And that's my Instagram is at George P. Dean. And that's the same for Facebook as well. So did anybody have any final words before we conclude?
I do, George. I want to say thank you for having me as a guest on your first official podcast. Okay. And of course, everyone get out and vote.
All right. Thank you, Don.
And I just want to hope that, I hope that we have some very informative information for everyone. And like Don and George said, voting is November 6th.
I appreciate everybody joining, and always remember, make decisions that add in life. And the first one starts with voting. Get out and vote. Have a good one.
Perfect. Bye.
Share the video and tell your friends to vote on November 6th. It's a wrap. It's a wrap.